Spoiler warning all the way to 2026 Lantern Rite and Zibai's character story. I'll give you some hint. This video was written on Monday. Yes, it's written the day before Lantern Rite's final act was up, and I need to yap it so bad that I wrote it prior to the final act's release. Let me just say this year's Lantern Rite is easily the most lore-packed one so far, and I kinda see this coming because they made the story permanent. This quest is a direct continuation of Not Christ's Archon quest, and in fact, Columbina's birth as the new moon goddess made a huge impact on Teyvat's false sky, more specifically the false moon, or what Zhongli calls as the shadow moon. In today's video, we'll be doing a very brief recap about the quest itself, mix it with Zibai's whole life, theorize on everything we learned about this Lantern Rite, and we have to talk about Istaroth as she actually leaked how the shades work. Now, disclaimer warning, this video contains Zibai's character story and signature weapon as well, as they already determined prior to her banner, so if you're not comfortable with that, you can leave now. As always, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Glitchxcity and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. So let me just say this. Zibai has one of the best writing in the game so far. Frankly, it's also my bias because she is technically a 1.0 character and I feel like they've been saving her lore for a very long time now. Well, she deserves the love for what she has been through, and you can trust Lootbar to give all the primal gems she deserves. Lootbar has been a long-time partner of this channel now, and that's because I use it myself. They provide cheaper crystals compared to in-game prices, supports consoles, supports melee Astro Wonderland, and they have packages that guarantee you to get characters you want. All you need is to enter your UID, no personal information required, and your items will arrive quickly. Over 36,000 Trustpilot reviews are showing their satisfaction after using Lootbar, and their customer service is always available if you need assistance. Aside from Genshin Impact, other popular games are included in Lootbar as well, including the newly added Arknight's Anfield. Click the link in the description below and register to get an additional 10% coupon that can be combined with all of the discounts and receive special discounts for returning customers. Now let's continue with the content. Zibai is an angel that lived during the era of unified civilization. Just like Nicole, she also guided the humans at that time, and in her case, she guided the people of Langan, a part of the unified civilization at that time and is now known as the Chasm. If I see one Langan joke, I'm going to ban you from this channel. The people of Langan worshipped Zibai as the god of soil and grain, and she guided the people of Langan how to grow crops, create clothes, and even build houses for them to live in. She is also the envoy of the moon, and just like Hyperborea, the people of Langan also worship the three moon goddesses, Arya, Sonnet, and Canaan. So there's a funny story about these gods in here because it came from an accident that the three moon goddesses created. So basically, the moons were supposed to take turns on their government over the night sky. But one day, they got their schedule mixed up and people were given a terrible fright. Like, they thought it's a terrible omen. So after that incident, the goddesses told Zibai to convey to the people that when the three moons are aligned again, it's not a disaster, but rather a festival per se. Literally an afterthought after they hemmed and hawed and said in their own words,
It means a festival is coming and everyone should eat full moon cakes and stuff.
Regardless, this is the reason why the people of Langan do this ritual. Aside from the obvious Lantern Rite, which I assume is a different naming at the time, it's also the same time where Zibai descended from the heavens to grant wishes for the people of Langan. Based on her character story, it is implied that Zhongli lived during this era. Regardless, Zhongli was also the one who taught Zibai how to use the tri-factor excision, or basically how to split one's soul into three deadly selves. Even though that's the case, Zibai can't do it on herself because her soul is quite complicated, likely due to her nature being created by the heavenly principles. Now this is where we entered Zibai's Moonwheel story, as it reveals some of the biggest lore bombs about the unified civilizations, and of course, Koitak. It seems the story is being told in an allegory, but I'll try my best to decipher it. Before becoming the envoy of the moon, Zibai guides humanity only during the day. Soon after, she was called by the ruler of time, Istaroth, and was bestowed upon a moon wheel by her. Yes, I am not kidding, and you heard that right. Istaroth gave Zibai a moon wheel. This means that visions and moon wheels are granted by the Shades and not by the Archons or the three moon goddesses. It is also revealed in the quest that a moon envoy doesn't have to be an angel, with Thoth being one of them as well. That's the canon lore about it so far, and we can talk about this later in the theory section. Regardless, Istaroth gave the moon wheel to Zibai as a sign that not only she became the envoy of the morning stars, likely referring to the heavenly principles and the Shades in this case, but also as the envoy of the three moon goddesses. Even though Zibai accepted this role, she declined the moon wheel as she found it unnecessary. The heavenly principles' plans are already perfect, she thought, so why does she need a moon wheel and become the envoy of the moon? As time goes, she gradually understands that something is amiss, and maybe there's a bigger intention why Istaroth gave her that moon wheel. During that era, the heavenly principles only cared for those who are sacred, or perhaps in this case, they're chosen ones that followed their guidance. They go as far as to burn those who they deem not worthy. However, the three moon goddesses, who co-ruled Teyvat with the heavenly principles, loved each and every single one of the creatures living in Teyvat equally. Even though Zibai was supposed to follow the sacred plan that the heavenly principles bestowed upon her, she instead loved the way that the moon goddesses ruled over Teyvat. Under their guidance, she guided the people of Langan, giving them the people that they deserved. Sometime after the arrival of Seotaxfoinen, Koitar called all of her fellow angels and revealed to them a revelation of the heavenly principles' true nature. In this meeting, there's at least 4 angels that attended: Yohualtechutin, Sibila, Nabu Malikata, and of course, Zibai. Koitar revealed each and every future that she sought on them, and in Zibai's case, she was destined to wander ever in dreams solely to journey, awaiting an encounter in a stagnant foreign land. Zibai was saddened by Koitar's actions as she basically wanted to rebel against the heavenly principles. Angels are not bestowed upon them the feelings of sadness and sorrow. Yet Koitar was able to feel them. Zibai even goes as far as to say that Koitar is a tainted angel, which honestly, she is not wrong. But eventually, she began to understand that Koitar's words indeed hold some truth. The moment Nibelang returned and introduced the forbidden knowledge to the world, the entirety of the unified civilizations were tainted. Because of this, the celestial nails were descended upon the civilizations in order to purify them. It is also said that the falsehood descended, which is very unlikely to be the false sky because the angels created them. Regardless, it is either related to the heavenly principles' true nature, the abyss, or Nibelang. The nails were cast down at Solfindognir, Tsurumi Island, the old Sumeru civilization, Old Natlan, Hyperborea, and finally, Langan. Zibai, who was guided by the Istaroth, was tasked to return and let Langan be destroyed by the Celestial Nail. But her love for her own people was so great that she herself defied the will of the heavenly principles. Soon after, she returned to Langan and blocked the Celestial Nail, buying the people of Langan some time to flee until she herself was finally destroyed by the nail. Based on the cutscene and the stories in Liyue, it is clear that Zibai is that solar chariot that fell in the chasm, as both the chariot and the nail fell at the same time. The heavenly principles cast a curse upon the angels that they will be punished and turned into a silly the moment they don't share their love equally, which is something that seems about to happen with Zibai as she fell in love with the people of Langan, not humanity as a whole. A lot of you pointed out Istaroth's tone, where she is both sad and displeased with Zibai's actions.
You have done enough.
And if you're still arguing on that, let me tell you, both of them are correct. On the verge of dying, Istaroth performed the tri-faction excision, splitting Zibai's soul into 3 and putting them in 3 different places. The first soul is in a painting of Janju the Moon Devourer, the second soul is in the chariot that fell into the chasm, and the third soul became the projection moon in the sky. She also placed the moon wheel that Zibai rejected into her bag, and it is implied that Istaroth was saddened when she did so. As implied in Zibai's character story, Istaroth's actions are both salvation and punishment, as Zibai was saved by her from dying but also punished for defying the heavenly principles' will. Regardless, the projection moon now plays as Zibai's prison while the rest of the two souls wander across Tevat. The people of Langan then evacuated to Chenyuville, which is why the same jade from the cutscene is at Chiwang Terrace. It is there to communicate with the gods above. Now this is a bit of a theory crafting here, but it seems the jade is related to Moonchase Rite. Later in the quest, we are revealed by Ganyu and Yanfei that the Moonchase Festival, basically an event from 2.1, was initially a rite called the Moonchase Rite performed by Rex Lapis, or Zhongli in this case. At first, people thought that the rite was performed to communicate with the moon, but no one was sure why that's the case either, as they never got a proper answer. Of course, until the Shadow Moon appeared, Cloud Retainer, or Shanyun in this case, realized that the rite was never meant to communicate with the moon, but to reach the White Horse Adeptus all along. Zhongli X Zibai agenda. The premise of this lantern rite is to save Zibai from the Shadow Moon. In order to do this, we have to gather all 3 souls before the lantern rite happens, because the moment people of Liyue's wishes gathered, it is also the time when the Shadow Moon fully disintegrated, and the moment either Zibai is perished or she'll be revived. The heavenly soul, Ziju, is inside the false moon, essentially counting so that she won't forget her memories. Unfortunately, as we saw in the lantern rite, she eventually forgot. The second is the earth soul, Ziji, who we eventually encounter on the second part of lantern rite. She is also the person who revealed to us what really happened during Langan's era. The third is the human soul, Zijiao, who is more known as the White Horse Adeptus, or also known as the Gold-Eyed Saladen Mare in the Taodo Sanctification Opera. This part of Zibai also helped Zhongli during the Arkan War era and was the one who is recorded in Springs of Hidden Jade and Moonlit Bamboo Forest. The Traveler is an important asset because he is a descender and he is not affected by time in Tevat. The moment Lantern Rite comes, all 3 souls of Zibai emerge and Zibai is finally reborn. This fulfilled Koitach's prophecy, as not only Zibai's soul did wander off the now known as Liyue, but also got the happiest ending out of the angels that Koitach prophesied. Now this is where Zibai's full story and the Lantern Rite quest ends. The final act of Lantern Rite is basically a small little date with Zibai as she explores Liyue. We are revealed some interesting lore in here, which is a good transition for us to get into the theory section. Before we continue, do note this video took a lot of effort to make, and for 2026, I want to have my channel reach at least 100,000 subscribers. So if you can hit that like and subscribe button, you're helping this channel a lot more than you might have thought. With that said, let's continue. While the game never mentions this, I believe that Zibai is that solar chariot. So long story short, it is said that the solar chariot fell at the same time when the celestial nail descended. There are 2 versions of the story, where the solar chariot was fixed by the people at that time and it descended. The second version, however, is that it fell and had a proud and agitated temper. While it slumbered within the earth, it was reawakened during the Arkan War and leapt back into the sky. 2 of these versions are very similar to Zibai, don't you think? In fact, she herself is both the envoy of morning stars and moon, so basically related to solar and lunar. In the cutscene, Zibai used her canopy to block the celestial nail. I have to say though, this scene is really cool. Regardless, she saved the people of Langan and eventually, her soul was put into a chariot. This chariot then fell into the chasm, which in this case is quite similar to what happened to Zibai, don't you think? The second story is where the solar chariot ascended during the Arkan War. While I don't think the chariot itself is referring to Ziji, I believe it is related to Zijiao, the third deadly self that eventually helped Zhongli during the Arkan War. Zijiao was said to have hid herself from humanity after that, which is safe to assume that she is the second story of the Solar Chariot. At Act 4, we are also revealed that Zibai indeed has a chariot and we ride it with her to explore Liyue. That said, it's possible that the Solar Chariot is indeed Zibai all along. However, it is also possible that the chariot is related to Zhongli, as the Solar Chariot could be related to his title as the Heaven's Star. Another possibility is that Zibai is the previous Welkin Moon Lady. If you have irresponsible financial stability, or perhaps you do because Welkin is the best deal you can get in this game, you might remember there's a certain Welkin Moon Lady that welcomes you whenever you log in. However, after you obtain Columbina, the icon changed to her as she is now the true Moon Goddess of Teyvat. For some time, people thought that the Welkin Moon Lady is canon since the Frost Moon has yet to be destroyed, but after the reveal of this quest, it seems that the Welkin Moon Lady is indeed Zibai as she was imprisoned in the Shadow Moon. It's very hard to assume for it to be anyone else other than her with how the lore goes, but my 2 cents right now is that Zibai is the previous Welkin Moon Lady. This part of the video is pure speculation and only based on things we learned so far, so please take what I said in this section with an extra pinch of salt. So we learned that Zhongli, before he became an Archon, is already the Lord of Geo and is named as the Heaven's Star. We have never got a mention of this title anywhere, and this could mean to him being directly related to the Heavenly Principles, or maybe even his role. In Zibai's character story, Zhongli already has this title as the Heaven's Star, and the mention of Heaven, Morning, and Star in there are implied to be the Heavenly Principles and the Shades. Again, I just want to say that this is purely speculation, so don't take it seriously, as I tried my best to come up with a decent theory with this one. Zhongli never told anyone about his past, and Zibai is the only one who knows it. Unfortunately, because it's been so long, she herself can't remember what it meant either. One thing I find weird is why his title is so similar to his current title being the Geo Archon. It's as if the authority of the 7 elements were not wielded directly by the Heavenly Principles, but rather they had another vessel to wield it for them. This means that Heaven's Star could likely mean that he is part of the Heavenly Principles as well. The mention of Heavens, especially in Zibai's Moonwheel story, states that they will only care for those who are within the standard of the Heavenly Principles. And if there are those who don't, the morning stars will scorch them into nothingness. So my thought right now, at least from what I can tell, is that Zhongli could be an executor in some way, or maybe the manifestation of the Geo authority. It could explain why Zhongli is always quiet about his own past, because it is not something that he should tell the people of Liyue. Maybe the nail was casted by him, maybe he was scorching those who don't meet the Heavenly Principles standards. Either way, I'm not going to explain further on this because Zhongli's title as the Heaven's Star needs to be elaborated further. I just hope they explain this at least in the next Lantern Rite, and frankly, my head hurts when I make this theory. Now, if you read a lot of the lore, you might find Istaroth's action to be very interesting because according to Venti, Istaroth treats everything equally, both in their value and in significance. It's the same as her power, or perhaps in this case, her curse, where the erosion will affect everything in Teyvat and will drive people who lived far too long to madness. There are a lot of gods in Teyvat that manage to suppress this curse, but some like Ashtaha and Zizhi are unable to suppress them and are driven into madness as we see in their respective quests. Zhongli also retired from Archonhood, or at least faked his death from the people of Liyue, because he knew that one day he would succumb to this as well. As for the matter of Istaroth saving Zibai, this in itself is contradictory to what Venti told us, but at the same time, I also find this to be in character with her. Here's the thing, even though she finds everything to be equal and insignificant, she herself still has a heart for humanity, at least a very small heart. She knew that the Enkanomians were doomed by the lies she created for them, but she still did it anyway. She helped Makoto in planting the sacred Sakura, which is still an act to save the Inazumans from the Cataclysm. She allowed Venti to borrow her powers to sweep Marichivari and the Bakunawa from Teyvat's timeline, and this saved the people of Tenochtitlan and Natlan. This time, Istaroth could just prevent Zibai from saving Langan because if you look at the cutscene, Istaroth is there, sitting next to Zibai. Instead, she allowed Zibai to do just that, and she even placed the moonwheel she gave her on her back once again, and implied to have cried when she did that. By logic, Istaroth should have been punished because she intervened with the fate of humanity plenty of times already. I spoke about this before, and I find it so weird why, unlike Renova, Istaroth is fine and was not punished. Turns out, there's a very noticeable pattern here because unlike Renova, Istaroth did it indirectly. If you look at what she did, there has to be a third party that needs to do her work, with Fenty sweeping the timeline while Makoto gave the C2A to plant the sacred Sakura. In Langan's case, Zibai was the one who blocked the celestial nail, and even though Zibai was supposed to wither and die, Istaroth did not let her die. It's quite poetic when you think about it, because what Istaroth did is still within the rules of the Heavenly Principles, where Zibai was punished and imprisoned as the false moon. But at the same time, her actions still protected humanity. I also find this to be the case because in Nocturne's Curtain Call, it is stated that the gods are not allowed to intervene with the fate of humanity, but it never states that they can intervene with each other's fate. Besides, the Archon War happened for this reason specifically, so Istaroth somehow circumvented her way to avoid getting into trouble. Now, you can argue that Istaroth directly helped the Inkanomians, but at the end of the day, what she did is still their destined fate anyway. That lights that she created for them also became their demise. But side tangent a bit, this reminds me of Istaroth's Lunar Arcanum, the tarot cards that you receive randomly after you finish the Imaginary Theater. In it, we see a card of Istaroth crying. We also learn that Istaroth is not within the Gardens of Gods as per the hymns of the Far North, and I always believe that all of the shades experience some sort of punishment, or maybe disciplinary actions by the Heavenly Principles. Renova was punished for creating the Night Kingdom, Nibirius somehow was left only with her heart, Asmodee is still unknown, and this time, it's Istaroth who we have no idea why she didn't get punished despite helping humans plenty of times already. Maybe her punishment is to experience the futility of fate. Maybe because she experienced way too many tragedies over and over, she is so numb to that feeling. This reminds me of Finan all over again because in his story, he has to re-experience in killing his own friends for millions of resets. And you know what's interesting in Istaroth's? In her card, it is heavily implied that Istaroth has lived over 14 billion years of darkness and 93 billion years of light, which could mean that she lived outside of the false sky, 14 billion years on outside, and 93 billion years in Tevat. Or it could be the other way around. Regardless, that is an insanely long time. Imagine you have to re-experience things over and over and you can't do anything about it. Anyway, that's just a side tangent and we can talk about that another day. Now this is the most interesting thing I want to talk about because it is revealed in Zibai's character story that the Shades are responsible for giving humans and gods visions and moonwheels. I'll make a video of this on its own later because Zibai's moonwheel story and Act 4 goes back all the way to Capitano's words in Natlan. Anyways, it seems at that time, visions did not yet exist, and they were given with moonwheels instead. It's possible that Nicole's vision was granted during the same era, but again, we can talk about that in another video. In her moonwheel story, it is said that moonwheels are part of the Heavenly Principles' divine plan, and we already knew this being the case because according to New Valet's character story, visions are granted to the humans using a part of the Archon's power. It is also revealed by Inafa in the Journey Home Archon quest that moonwheels are created by joint effort by the Heavenly Principles and the three moon goddesses. Zibai's moonwheel line is interesting because despite it being short, it is clear that she knows what the moonwheels and visions actually are. The whole thing of Zibai's moonwheel story is told by using the garden allegory, where the flowers and garden represents humanity. In the story, it is stated that the angels are there to cultivate the garden. The brilliant lights of the morning stars always shone with vigor across the entire garden, not lingering on any single flower for long. They did not worry about scorching the flowers and soil that were not sacred, even if it would turn them to pure nothingness. Basically, it meant that the Heavenly Principles will not hesitate to eliminate those who they deem not sacred. Capitano's words also say the same thing.
In the garden cultivated by the gods, flowers and weeds grow side by side. When the weeds compete for nutrients in the soil, the gardener intervenes to inhibit their growth.
At that time, the Abyss was not yet introduced. Even with Koitax's case, it was implied that it's not the power of the Abyss, That said, it's possible that the heavenly principles' divine plan is indeed relating to something that is happiness, or in a way, pure happiness. Since we are revealed in Zibai's character story and Act 4 that moon wheels are a quest to become a moon envoy, this explains why some of the characters we knew are using vision instead of moon wheel, because when you are gifted one, you are now the envoy of the moons. Like I just told you earlier, Thoth was hinted as the envoy of the moon in Nefer's signature weapon, and it seems it is confirmed by Zibai herself in this case, and they are co-workers. Now it's worth noting that Thoth himself is not an angel, at least implied to be that way, because not all angels are a moon envoy, and they can be other gods or even humans. So with that logic, this means that Inaffa, Flint's, Lama, and Nefer are also moon envoys, which makes a lot of sense now why the trio even joined the battle, except Inaffa because she has priorities. But wait, gifted with a moon wheel means that you are tasked to become an emissary for the moons as well. It is quite as literal as it is, and it matches with Thoth's words as well. In Nefer's Moonwheel story, it is said that Thoth often boasts his labor and guided humans by the will of the three moon goddesses, so it matches with Zibai's claim. But don't you find it interesting why moon wheels still make its appearance? Logically speaking, they should have never appeared now that the moon goddesses already perished. Even with Columbina's birth, the distribution of moon wheels should have ceased, because her existence was rejected by Tevat itself until True Moon Archon Quest. You might remember a video I made not too long ago where I talked the Shades might already have intervened, and Columbina is their way of intervening. Since the Shades personally gave people to moon wheels, does that mean the Shades indeed played a role in Columbina's birth?